A sit or stand?
I'm good with standing.
You're good with standing? Okay, great. Well, we're going to get started. Thanks very much for joining us on the last day of NRF, and I'm sure you've been to 1,000 talks. So we got a decent-sized group here for this time slot. So we're here today to share with you using artificial intelligence in retail. And I'm Gary Cernverda. I'm the founder and CEO of Daisy Intelligence. And I'm going to tell our story, and we have one of our customers here, Alicia Terrence from SpartanNash, who's a user of the technology, and she can tell you what the reality of AI is all about because she uses it every day. She'll tell you the good, bad, and ugly. And so we want to tell you a story of a vision, and then there's a reality story here too. And would love to answer any questions. We have a booth at number 637, so feel free to follow up with us after. So the goal today, if this thing works. Trying to advance the slide guides. There we go. So the agenda, so I'll define artificial intelligence because I think there's a lot of hype in the marketplace about what is AI, what isn't AI, and so I'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about how we're applying AI in merchandising and pricing, and that's what Alicia will talk about, the real-world experiences and how SpartanNash has implemented the Daisy system and the challenges and the outcomes that have happened there. So I'll start with what is AI. I think for the most part, AI is, he wants to get you in the camera shot, Alicia, there you go. So I think for the most part, when people say artificial intelligence, they're talking about statistics. I would say it's statistics rebranded. I'm an aerospace engineer, so for me, what NASA has been doing since the 1950s and what the US Air Force does, that's really AI. It's called optimal control. A human being didn't land the lander on the moon. Neil Armstrong didn't fly the lander. He told the lander, this is what I want to do, and the computer figured out how to execute those flying instructions. If the computer on a fighter jet crashed, the pilot would eject immediately because the computer adjusts the flight controls 1,000 times a second. So I call that it's autonomous machine intelligence with human oversight. So the human is the pilot asking the AI what it wants to do, and the AI can execute the details. A simple example of an autonomous machine intelligence is a thermostat. It's based on the laws of physics. We know if you add heat to an insulated box, it'll get warm. If you add cold to an insulated box, it gets cold. You don't need a predictive model to do that. And there's a sensor that measures the temperature, and based on the difference between what you want and what the temperature is, the system very simply, autonomously decides whether to turn on hot or cold. So that's autonomous machine intelligence in its most simple form. In a more complex form might be an autonomous race car. So you don't drive a car with a statistical model. You wouldn't put a car with an empty brain on the road and let it learn on the fly and crash 1,000,000 times and run people over. You would simulate what the physics of a car are. And fortunately, you have the laws of physics. You would simulate in a computer a simulation of the world and figure out what's the optimal way to drive the car. You could crash in the computer, no problem. We could do 100 million hours of driving in 1 hour, drive more than all of humanity has ever driven. So unsurprisingly, these types of autonomous systems like AlphaGo that beat the human Go player, they beat the human because they played more games than all of humanity has in all of history. So it's brute force computing that achieved that. And through trial and error, the race car logic, the AI decides what's the optimal sequence of steering, brake, and gas pedal to achieve the fastest lap. The reward is delayed from the instant. There's no instant reward except that you're on the road. You have to sacrifice in the short term, slow down for the corners to get the fastest lap. So that's an autonomous machine intelligence. The historical data is only used to configure the simulation. What's the force of gravity? What's the friction of the tires on the road? So you don't model the data. You don't learn from the data. You just configure the simulation and learn what the patterns are. So for us, that's what AI is. It's tried and true. You create a mathematical theory first, Then you get the relevant data and you apply it. That's how the whole world was built. Not a single thing in your lives was built with a statistical model, nor a sea hunt for data. So I don't know why the world has turned this inside out. The scientific method is what's being used in the engineering world and what we're trying to apply to business. So again, what's AI? It's autonomous. There's no human in the loop. If 50 consultants show up with a statistical tool that's not AI, so it means no human in the loop, right? It's machine intelligence, so I hate the term AI. It's computers. Computers do math better than people do since the beginning of computing, so it's based on computer intelligence. It simulates alternative decisions. It says, if I promote this product, what happens? If I don't promote this, what happens, right? Simulates alternatives more than people can to learn what is the optimal set of decisions. And it can learn new decisions that have never been done before because you don't have to have historical data. We can find patterns in products that indicate that they're good products. And there's a delayed reward. The goal is to optimize sales over years. So to tie it back to the race car, a year of retail is like a lap around a racetrack. And how do you drive the retailer? You decide what's the weekly promotional product mix, what's the weekly pricing mix, and what's the weekly inventory allocation. Those are the key inputs that you use to drive the retailer to get the maximum result. And overall, what's the role of the human? It's not to replace the person. The human is the pilot. The human sets the strategy. AI is not going to tell you that you should be a high-low retailer or an EDLP retailer. It's not going to tell you that your best category, you should be #1 in fresh. It doesn't tell that. You set the strategy. The human is the AI's boss. So we elevate the person sets the goals, and it's human understood. We created the math. It's a human-driven system, not a random statistical system that just finds correlations in everything. So how disruptive this should be? It should be massively disruptive economically. What we've been able to do is grow promotional effectiveness by more than 100%, which translates on average to about a 3 to 5% year-over-year same-store sales growth. Massive, right? In the grocery industry, that would represent a 100% increase in total company net margin. If AI is the panacea, then these are the types of results you should be seeing. So that's what AI is. This is some of the solutions that Daisy offers. I'll let Alicia introduce SpartanNash and stop hogging the stage here. Thanks, Alicia.
Thanks, Gary. As Gary indicated, I'm Alicia Terrence. I'm from SpartanNash. I am actually a category planning manager or merchandise financial planning manager, depending on how many words you want to add in front of it. It pretty much means that I handle the promotions and the finances simultaneously for all of SpartanNash. We are a Fortune 400 company and the 5th largest distributor in the U.S., headquartered in Grand Rapids and Byron Center, Michigan. What's funny about us is we're a distributor first that happens to do retail, and we learn from our retail so we can then give it to more than our 2,100 distributor partners that we have. So what we learn, we use ourselves as a little test box, and then we're able to help our independents, which is 2,100 strong, help us help them. So it's a really great relationship. We do have 6 different banners across multiple states. We do business in Michigan, North Dakota, South Dakota, Omaha, high-low values, specialty. So it can be very complex from a promotionally driven planning model, which is why we love Daisy. So why did we adopt it? Obviously, I just told you how complex our distribution network is, and therefore so is our retail ops. As many of you, I'm sure, in here are merchants, the days do not get any more hours, but there always seems to be a lot more work that we try to press into those days for our teams. And a lot of it is around making the right decisions for the right business at the right time, and it can be scary. There's a lot of risk-reward payoff that happens with that. And we needed a tool to help us. We can all run Excel reports, we can all take information out of MicroStrategy and dissect it 100 ways to Sunday, but MicroStrategy never opened up and said, hey, you should probably do this, SpartanNash. MicroStrategy doesn't tend to talk to me, even though I'm in it a lot. So that doesn't happen. So we needed something to help us with our decision making, and we hadn't come across that. We needed something that could provide promotional insight with little risk because, as we all know, our business is not getting any easier. It's a lot harder to get those increases in promos. The margins are tighter, the vendors are squeezing harder, our independents want more. Everybody wants more, the customer wants the lowest price, the company wants the highest return, everybody is just squeezing everybody. So we needed to find a different way to go to business and to go to market, so to speak, with our promotional strategy at our corporate level. And we needed to understand that this wasn't going to be short term. So much in merchandising, we look at what happened this week. All of the reports are ran on a weekly basis. They're ran at an item level, a category level, week, bucket, bucket, bucket. What did Fresh do? What did this desk do? Everybody is bucketized, and they're put in their little round peg and said, this is what you need to do, and here are the results that happened because of it. So we don't have a lot of time to actually measure what's going on, to actually see into the future, to see what we can do to be better, and or have a lot of times the ability to make drastic changes, because it just means so much to the company if we make a bad decision. So that was the biggest driving factor, is we needed the tools to be able to hand over to our merchants, to be making the better decisions, to grow our business in a world where it's hugely disruptive right now.
So one of the things that we've learned is that merchandise planning is not a human task. So if you have 50,000 products, which would be a large grocery store, and you have to pick 500 products every week to promote, that 50,000 choose 500. That lotto math, that means there's 10 to the power of 3,600 possible combinations of products to consider, right? And that's a 10 with 3,600 zeros. Well, there's only 10 to the power of 80 atoms in the universe, so you can't do statistical modeling. And I'll talk to you in a little bit about, it's the combination of products that matter, because we know that products have a halo and cannibalization and pull forward or pantry loading, all those ripple effects. So every week the retailer does something you've never done before. Every week is a unique week, so you don't have any historical examples. And if you've been in a business 100 years, you have one data point a week because it's the combination, that unique combination. You have 5,000 data points out of 10 to the power of 3,600 possibilities. There's no way you can use statistical modeling or supervised learning to do this problem. So that's why AI is not a human task. No human being could possibly look into that. It's no wonder retail is such a narrow margin business, because it's so complex and astronomically difficult. And that's where computing can help. So how does DAISY work? We learn some of the patterns. We configure our simulation from 2 years of historical T-log data. So that's telling you 100% of what your customers are buying. We call that extreme personalization. We listen to what every customer tells you by their purchases. And we don't learn from that data, we configure our simulation. And I'll talk about that in a minute. We use our theory of retail, like the laws of physics. We've created the laws of retail. We configure our theory of retail using that T-log data to learn some of the patterns that are happening. Then we simulate. We trade off all the alternatives. Should I do product A or product B? Should I do milk or eggs on the front page? What if I did cheese? What if I swapped out the cheese with bread? Try all those simulations. We do billions of simulations in a given week. And then we deliver a decision to people like Alicia, who then looks at it and goes, what did Daisy say this week? What's going on the front page of the flyer? What should we put on the back page? And the merchants and category managers and planners can then evaluate, does this make sense? Do I believe it? And take away some of that hard thinking that needs to be done. And then afterwards, we measure what's the net promotional impact, what's the incremental impact to the business. Daisy AI is optimizing incrementality to grow the business.
So our journey has not been an easy one, as Gary said. I don't think anything is, and it's not inherently Daisy. It's really because you had to change the narrative of what we were doing at retail. So often what we do is, to what Gary had said before, it's easier just to repeat what you've done because you know what the expected result is. It's a lot harder to say, I think we want to try something else, and this is the result that we are going to get because of it. We did implement the product and price mix from Daisy. And we effectively, by the way, she is a she. I would like to point that out. I let all my Daisy friends know that she's a she. She makes an incredible amount of decisions very quickly, and she's very intuitive and smart, and so she is a she. She has to be a she. There's no other way about it. So And not only that, it actually was more fun to personalize her, because if you've ever sat in a meeting, if you're any of you are merchants, you can raise your hand, and have war rooms where you're like fighting for the front page, and oh my God, the pork roast has to be here, and no, but you know, I've got asparagus, and oh no, General Mills cereal. I mean, that's a constant battle. And so it's really nice to sit in those and say, stop, time out. Daisy indicates we should do this. And to have all of the leaders in that room, who's Daisy? I've been here 20 years and I have never met that employee. Who is she that's telling me how to run my papers? And so it's really a conversation, and it really makes the ingestion of the idea that a computer is helping us make decisions a lot easier on the teams. So you got to give her that personal touch, and I recommend you do the same thing. It makes it for a fun dinner conversation at the end of the day. It's hard though, because we have to get her ingrained into our process. And that can be the toughest thing. And it's tough not to measure something for a one-to-one relationship. I'm going to put bananas on the front page because it does X. When Daisy looks at it, she's looking at our total store and how we're helping the total store. She's breaking down the walls and saying, I don't know anything but to be productive, and I don't know anything but to help you grow and pick the right items as a store. Not as center store, not as fresh, not as frozen, not as wine, not as anything. How can I help SpartanNash grow the business? And she answers that question every time with as much intelligence as she can. She really helps guide us in those decision making.
How do we create the laws of retail? When you're creating the laws of retail, it's based on fundamental truths that you know. We all know that products have a halo. For example, ground beef is a great product. All the grocers know that. Customers don't buy just raw ground beef, except for my one crazy uncle who'll open the saran wrap, stick a fork in. It's disgusting. But other than him, everybody who buys ground beef buys something else. If you're thinking, Italian dinner, you're buying pasta, tomato sauce, cheese, bread. If you're thinking, I'm going to make hamburgers, you're buying buns, condiments, produce. So ground beef is a product that has a large use case. Consumers don't buy products, they buy solutions. And so solutions that have multiple products in them create a larger basket. Ground beef will create 4 or 5 more items for every customer, and that's just them fulfilling their need. Contrast that to a case of water. The use case for water is buy the case of water, drink it. You don't need to buy other products to use the water. So that's the first thing. Think of products that drive a big halo, and don't promote the halo. Discount the ground beef, keep all the other items at full price. That's how you control margin. You don't have to give it away because customers will buy those products anyways. But it's not all positive incrementality. Because the customer bought ground beef to make hamburgers, hot dog sales go down. You have to net out that negative effect. Because they bought hamburger buns in the halo of ground beef, that cannibalizes hot dog buns. They forward bought 2 weeks supply. Because it was on sale, it was a great price. You pantry loaded and put it in the freezer. So those ripple effects are astronomical. If you have 100,000 products, you have 10 billion weekly ripples. And some of these products ripple forward in time. That's way beyond human ability. And of course, we consider promotional elasticity. Putting it on the front page will sell more than an inside page. Doing a TV ad or a front of your website landing page drives more sales. Some products have a longer life cycle than others, so that impacts how frequently you should promote them. We look at competitive pricing. What you buy at Christmas is different than what you buy in the summer. These are all common sense truths. Every one of you know that, and we've just assembled this into a mathematical theory that we can then simulate the impact of those product mix, price mix, and inventory allocation decisions to find what's truly incremental and will grow your business. And then we measure it verifiably, what we call net promotional effect. We measure the baselines of everything. Daisy measures what would this product have done if you didn't promote it. That's the baseline sales. Then there's a promotional lift. Because you did the promotion, there was a full price lift. You made a discount in pricing. You got some vendor funding, and that resulted in the promotional lift that you created. That's incremental to the baseline. Most retailers stop there because beyond that is invisible. Then Daisy goes into those billions of interactions, measures what's the incremental halo, the incremental associated sales. We know that that halo exists even for non-promoted products. So we calculate what's the normal baseline you get. if you look at your data, you'll discover that the ratio of associated sales to item sales is the same every week, whether it's promoted or not. The recipe for a pasta dinner doesn't change because ground beef was on sale. So you can get incrementality. If you sell 10% more ground beef, you'll sell 10% more pasta, and you get that incremental halo. And then we subtract cannibalization. You didn't buy hot dog buns, goes down a bit. You forward bought in pantry loaded a 2-week supply. That's a negative impact. There's a price investment plus vendor funding. Add all those positives and negatives together, you get what we call net promotional effect, which is an incremental measure of the impact on your business. We can measure stockouts. There's a loss due to stockouts. We didn't have the right inventory. We didn't make the right forecast. And then we show what you left on the table because you didn't listen to Daisy, not to poke you in the eye, but just to continue to cajole and remind and try to do that change management. Daisy doesn't know everything. Sometimes there was a storm went through and destroyed a farm field and blueberry prices went up. So that's where planners like Alicia will go in a last minute, say, let's make a change, or you got a great vendor deal, or you have excess inventory you want to clear. Lots of good reasons not to use Daisy. We simulate. Here's a simulation example. If you simulated, here's a price elasticity curve for ground beef. We would say if you pick the price point there and you would choose a net promotional price there, that lowest price that drives 11,000 units, right? But now if you look at every single product, we can simulate what happens when we look at all the products that are related to ground beef. And we would choose a much different price than we've ever done in the past and double the net promotional effectiveness, because we look at what's the impact of this price of ground beef on pasta, pasta sauce, taco shells. So with the laws, the mathematical laws, we can simulate what you've never done to find solutions that drive incrementality. In this example, we would double the net promotional impact of that promotion by considering that halo effect that occurs. So maybe, Alicia, you can talk about some of the reality and implementation challenges.
Definitely. As I had said before, nothing is ever perfect. And often I've always said in working with various different softwares, it's very rarely the software's fault. It's generally the data that's either being put into it or the user error part or user reluctance to accept it. And it's generally always been the same in my mind. And Daisy is no different. We do try to humanize her. Like I said, it's a funny way. But it's also intuitive because we have so many data pools. And sometimes our teams, really, another software, another one, I have to do this. And it's just, in their minds, you're adding another layer of complexity to something that is we've turned our jobs so repetitious because of what we do every day in grocery. To them, it can sometimes be, you're adding this, but I'm not seeing the immediate benefits. Because again, it's not always about immediate gratification. This is about a long-term strategy for long-term growth. And so if you're not measuring it on a daily, monthly, weekly basis, that's really going against the heart of a lot of what we do in old school grocery retailing, right? So having that change mentality is really the hardest piece that we have every day, and that's just a change management process that we have to go through. We wanted to easily adopt her and quickly to see how we could get her up and running and have her talk to us. And when you're planned as far out as we typically are in grocery, that can present some challenges of introducing a new fork in the road, so to speak. So we did it small, we did it incrementally, and said, let's just focus on a small area and a small front page, and let's build that into our plans. And of course, it's all about changing process again, and process change takes a long time in a big company. And then it's all about the conversation and changing the narrative. We believe in Daisy, and that starts at the top down in our organization. Our leadership is rallied around it. From the top down. And so if you get that kind of organic buy-in with all of your leadership, the narrative is always there. So if you're at a meeting, the answer is always, well, I don't know. It's, okay, let's go consult Daisy. She's like our little Wizard of Oz or our Obi-Wan, so to speak. Like, oh, I don't know what to do. Okay, let's go ask Daisy. And so when those narratives start to change, she becomes ingrained into your culture, and it's made it a lot easier for us to do. We also, though, because we are merchants and work in the business we do, we have to align our KPIs, right? Some people, soft rewards are great and all the organic, but at the end of the day, the hard-defined goals have to be there as well. So for the immediate users, which are our business planners, we do recognize and align their strategic goals for their KPIs with the utilization of Daisy. And that's a work in progress as we work collaboratively with Gary and his team on how that looks. They report out to us on a weekly basis, so we always have a measuring tool, a yardstick, to see where we're at, and it's easy to measure, and it's easy for our team to understand their accountability and ownership into it, and that works really well for those merchants that still need that. I need that hard goal. A lot of others just need the soft goal. They need it to be part of the culture and the conversation. And you got to make it easier. Not everything is as user-friendly, especially when you're talking about AI, and if you think of the sheer amount of SKUs that are in any grocery store, Daisy has to ingest all of that. Our team has to help her, and our team then has to sort of undigest that. So both teams work extremely hard, and then we both try to help each other make it way easier on each other. And so that's always an opportunity. So we are looking to save a lot of time. I wouldn't say we're quite there yet in our total rollout, but we also have only been doing this 6 months. So it's not a long process. We haven't been on it very long. We haven't been dating her very long. We've pretty much committed at this point, so we're beyond the first date, though, just so you know. She is saving us time, though, excuse me, in our planning process, because she spits out her recommendations, and we listen. And that's what we do. And our merchants get to, spend more time on all of the other things that we are asking them to do. So aside from Daisy, they have to take care of customers. Oh, by the way, plan your assortment. Oh, by the way, 4 stores called and they have a problem. The warehouse has a problem. So now we freed up a lot of their time in planning because Daisy's done a lot of the thoughts for us. It's not all about just their intuition either. We are trying to become a more data-driven organization, and so it's the science with the art. It's the painter and the paintbrush. It's the neck and the head, however analogy you want to do with it. Merchants is not all science and it's not all art. It's really being able to find the blend of the two and making them work together to be successful. And Daisy really represents that for SpartanNash at this time. Sorry, I'll let you take this one.
So what Daisy tries to do, it's not about just the category, work in category management, where you treat every category like a silo and you run that category like a business. So what we're doing is working with some of the leading category management thinkers, like our great partner, TPG, the partnering group, some of the authors of that original paradigm. We're flipping the story from a vertical category view to a holistic horizontal view, looking at those interactions between categories. And given the competitive nature of retail, ever more so today, it's always been competitive, but even more so, you can't ignore those horizontal halo effects. So that holistic view of promotional and total sales activity is important. So it's what's best for the company, not one department or one category. And that's what the technology allows you to do. That's what's beyond human abilities, to optimize total company sales. And that, as Alicia's talked about, poses a whole bunch of change challenges around compensation, process, all of those things that need to be taken into account. Fundamentally, the technology works. If we can fly spaceships to Pluto, I think we can help retailers do a better job of pricing and product selection, right? But the change is the really difficult part. It's the human side of it, right? So what's next for SpartanNash?
So for us, that really is what Gary said. One of our biggest opportunities is to take down those walls. Many of you know meat, seafood, center store grocery, frozen, we are very siloed. Our planning and our processes happen on a different timeline. You can be talking with one vendor in more of a UPC-driven environment, more of a shelf, a CPG. In grocery, right now, about a promotion we're going to be doing in August. If I went to the produce team and said, hey, let's plan your August promos using Daisy, they're going to laugh at me. And they do all the time, by the way. But that's finding a way to work within the confines of what we have as businesses. We have these niches. And produce needs to work within the boundaries that they have because that's what keeps our produce fresh. That's what keeps everything working. But Daisy also represents that as what produce should we be doing, and how can it help, and how can grocery support? Conversely, how can fresh support grocery? And we're tearing down those walls of somebody has to have 2 blocks, somebody has to have 3, it's bakery this month. We're working at it and saying we are a company that has a strategy and a mission and a duty to our customers and our independents. What is the best thing for the company? And we're working towards that every day. It's a challenge. It's hard to change a legacy system like promo overnight. And that's just our continual every day. It's emails, it's how do we do this? What kind of this can we have? Oh, by the way, have you done this? And it's a lot of communication. The scope, we want to be 100% Daisy. I can tell you we're not quite there yet, and it's actually because of the things that make SpartanNash unique that are also sort of holding us back from being 100% Daisy utilization. And there's some opportunities on our legacy systems and data that is stopping that as well, but overall, I can tell you unequivocally, we 100% utilize Daisy for all planning metrics for promos in SpartanNash. She has talked about it every promo meeting that we have, and we like it. Like I said, she's our little Obi-Wan, and we do not see that going away. We actually see that teamwork and camaraderie growing over the course of the next year, not only between the departments and the merchants, but with our Daisy team and partners and other partners we have in the business to fully integrate a solution that works for us. And that's also the other part that's awesome about Daisy is they listen. She listens. And it's nice to finally get a partner that listens.
So why now? Why has AI taken this hype? Computing power is really the fundamental resource. Moore's Law has made computing astronomically powerful. The computer equipment Daisy has today, $1 million of technology today, would have cost $1 billion in 2003 when Daisy was founded. So Moore's Law and GPU computing have enabled this massive computation to look at those ripple effects. It wasn't feasible to do this 15 years ago. And this is accessible to everybody. Our smallest customer has 4 stores. Some of our largest customers have thousands of stores like SpartanNash. So this can work at any scale economically because the business case is growing your year over year same store sales. That means you can afford it. It's paid for out of those business returns. So you might say, what's the big deal? We've been doing statistics for decades. You know, regression was invented in 1805. Well, it's because all of these different software products, you might have tools in forecasting, marketing, vendor management. They all do statistical models, all different math. Are they pulling the rope in the same direction? They're at odds with each other. They're optimizing different things. How do you know that vendor A and vendor B, they're not offsetting each other's gains? Because you're not modeling the business holistically. And so that's a key thing. Engineering systems, the space shuttle is not flown by 97 different disparate systems that don't talk to each other. You have to have all of these systems working together, pulling on the rope in the same direction, right? So if you have one set of laws of retail, all of your software solutions should use that. What Daisy's goal is to be the brain of retail to help you do what to do for things that are beyond human ability. Let's let people do what people are good at. Let the machines do what machines are good at. Machines do math and computing, very complex problems. Human beings are great at strategy, innovation, inventing the math, setting the strategy. So we believe that if every retail decision was based on a theory of retail and an intelligent agent like Daisy, you could grow net margin by 200%, 300%. And you won't bank that money. Smart companies will reinvest that in price, reinvest that in innovation, and overall lower the cost of living for your consumers and have a massive impact on humanity. That's what I believe the game stakes of AI are. We're happy to answer any questions you have here. We have a few minutes left. We're also going to be at booth 637 just down the way here if you want to talk in person. But thank you for your time and attention, and thank you, Alicia, for being up here with me.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. This is a marriage between AI and people. It's not about AI replacing people. So we're saying use the technology to augment human capability, not replace people. And I think that's the use case for artificial intelligence, not this hyped out replace 40% of jobs. That's not what we should be doing. The goal is augment human capability by solving problems that people are not good at solving. Like the best customer service robot will never be as good as the best human customer service person. So let's leave that alone. But figuring out the optimal price, well, we know that computers can do that better than people. So focus on those problems first.
It is good. It's the art and the science, the mix of the both.
Well, I mean, T-log data, the transaction receipts are pristine. That's, that's the money that runs the business and shows up in the finance system. Typically, promotional history data, some companies don't capture that well, so promotion history is a bunch of work. We use some other technologies to scrape flyers and translate that, and we've built some capabilities to do that. As well, some of the product master data, product hierarchy file, and things like price item groups for pricing typically need some work, but that's what Daisy also does some AI-based data cleansing and data correction that's helpful. So, I mean, we have the technology, we've learned over our customers that how to fix some of those data issues. But the fundamental core data, T-log at every company is pristine and is the sales that roll up into your paychecks. Well, thanks very much. Booth 637 if you want to find out more, and if you want to get a copy of the presentation, just let us know. I think we scan most of your badges, so that'll be available. Thank you again.
Thanks, guys.